Metalstorm, The Destruction of Jared's Sin, is an odd duck. Released in 1983 and directed by Charles Band, the prolific B-movie auteur and founder of Full Moon Studios. It's a pretty transparent Star Wars ripoff. Much like its peers, Star Crash, Battle Beyond the Stars, and Ice Pirates, the single greatest film ever created by human beings.
I just rebuilt him.
Looks good.
His motor system is 0.01 milliseconds faster than the finest Omega build.
I don't mean anything by this, but is there any particular reason why he's black?
Sure. I wanted him to be perfect.
Whereas other Star Wars ripoffs tend to have a lot more, space in them, Metalstorm decided to take a more terrestrial approach and have its plot take place on a single planet. A planet that looks shockingly like Southern California. I'm not sure whether this is due to budgetary constraints or the filmmakers wanting to go with a grittier Western-style motif. Either way, the film borrows its visuals heavily from the first 20 minutes of New Hope, Mad Max, and, whatever the hell this is.
That's not it.
The film's protagonist is named Dogen, or Dogen, I can't really get it straight. And he's your generic space cop, bounty hunter kind of guy. The script doesn't give him a particularly fancy title, backstory, or personality. He's a tan jawline decked out with Mad Max's wardrobe and Mad Max's mom's car. Dogen has been sent to Lemuria, another word for Atlantis and probably some lame Battlestar Galactica riff, to track down infamous renegade Jared Sin, whose crimes include sucking up people's souls in little crystals and having that haircut. Seriously, man, what is going on there? Given that Jared Sin is the film's titular character, much rides on his villainous charisma and the scope of his evil plans, which are at best nebulous, and involved using little crystals to suck the souls out of people to power a big crystal, which I guess will somehow make him Grand Poobah of the entire universe. It's never fully explained. The actor playing him does a fine job, even though he's not given much to work with apart from a weird gimmick and an outfit made out of an old love seat. In the plus column, Jared is a pretty evil name, and it puts him in the running for the most coveted title of Most Evil Jared. With such luminaries as Jared Fogle, Jared Kushner, and Jared from Jared's Diamonds. I don't know if that last one is actually evil, but rule of threes, y'all. Full disclosure, for the sake of ethical journalism, I've added myself to the list, given that my middle name is also Jared. Given that Metalstorm is heavily influenced by Star Wars, an attempt to emulate the film's most popular character, Darth Vader, was to be expected. Also, given that Metalstorm is the backyard wrestling version of Star Wars, we get this guy. Ball is revealed many times through dialogue to be Jared Sin's son. Whether it be simply a title or Jared Sin's wife is some kind of cyborg lizard creature, we're never told. Like the character he's ripping off, Ball has weird headgear, robot limbs, and talks through a speaker. Except none of it works visually, and he actually comes off more confusing and pathetic than threatening. The single weirdest part of the movie is Ball's gimmick, where he shoots green goop out of his robot stump, which apparently puts people in a sort of hypnotic trance where he and Jared Sin appear and suck their soul into a crystal, which kills them in the real world? This is how Metalstorm presents its mystic elements, being a Star Wars ripoff, as a series of short, semi-hallucinatory dream sequences. The main thrust of the story has Dojin in his vague space cop role assigned to track down the renegade Jared Sin for other space crimes, I guess. Well, Dojin isn't on the beat for 5 minutes until he runs into Kelly Preston's character, Deanna. Deanna and her father were a couple of space miners just minding their space mining business, until Deanna's dad was just up and killed by Ball, I guess, for honing in on his crystal racket. The method of execution? Death by spooky goop. This, of course, throws Deanna into the arms of Dojin. There could be a whole conversation here about Dojin taking advantage of a woman grieving over her father's murder by a green snot-slinging cyborg, but neither the movie or even me, who is normally totally down for dissecting pointless nonsense, feels up to this task. As they hook up for reasons, they of course run into Ball again, who promptly green goops Dojin. I'm beginning to suspect Ball is a one-trick pony here. This time, however, Deanna and Dojin repel Jared Sin from crystalling Dojin through the force of, I don't know, their love? It's a little too early for that. Maybe it's their mutual horniness that serves as an effective bulwark to Jared Sin's power. Long story short, Dojin doesn't get crystalled. This, of course, puts a big old bug up Jared Sin's ass, pushing him to capture Deanna by teleporting her directly into his custody, and then teleporting this weird glowing cockroach man to flail around ineffectually at Dojin. This whole part is pretty confusing to me, because if Jared Sin can just teleport people anywhere he wants, why doesn't he just teleport Dojin into the sun? Or maybe just teleport a bomb into his car while he's driving? Or, I don't know, maybe spend 1 minute explaining the scope of Jared Sin's dumb powers so I can stop thinking about why this movie doesn't make any sense. So, with the renewed purpose of a man cock-blocked by an oily space wizard, Dojin continues his quest to destruct Jared Sin. Armed with the totally not MacGuffin information that Jared is searching for a lost city in the middle of a desert, Dojin seeks out a guide in the form of the Full Moon staple, Tim Thomerson. Tim Thomerson plays Rhodes, who is the standard, world-weary, I give no fucks rogue, who's only in it for the paycheck. It's an utterly forgettable comic sidekick / secret badass role. But thankfully, Tim Thomerson is extremely likable, and compared to the lead, actually has some kind of charisma. Also, you get these awesome scenes of Dojin's car with their heads constantly on the verge of knocking into each other like a bunch of coconuts. So, long story short, Dojin and Rhodes, after being attacked by some sand muppets, eventually uncover a sacred artifact, which magically makes Dojin nude and whisks him into Madonna's Like a Prayer video.
When you call my name, it's like a little prayer. I'm down
But just as they're about to go and, I don't know, smack Jaredson upside the head with it, they run into another little speed bump. TV's Richard Mole. Richard Mole's character, Hurok, is the leader of a group of Cyclopean aliens who are pretty nettled at Dojin and Rhodes for traipsing around their territory and trying to make off with their stuff. This, of course, leads to the well-worn trope of challenge the angry natives to trial by combat to save our lives, and then become super best buds. This also leads to my second favorite segment in Metalstorm, in which a large man is strapped to a smaller man, and both are given the tiniest ninja size available at the local flea market. After becoming super best friends, Hurok points the duo to Jaredson's hideout, where Dojin and Rhodes engage in a bit of vehicular mayhem with the bad guys. The end result is this super goopy robot arm rip. Alright, that's pretty cool. After the arm rip and Rhodes taking some kind of weird back massager to the head... Oh, don't worry, it takes a lot more than that to kill Dollman. We get to the final, and first, actual confrontation between Dojin and Jaredson. And oh boy, let me tell you, it does not disappoint. Because to be disappointed, you would have to actually had some kind of expectation built up for how the final battle would go. Maybe some insight into Dojin and Jaredson's worldviews, some stakes for the fate of the planet and its people, concern for the well-being of Diana, Kelly Preston's character, who completely disappeared from the course of the movie's events after Jared teleported her. Still calling bullshit on that. And hopes that she and Dojin could resume their romance, of which lasted less than 5 minutes of screen time. So no, the end battle does not disappoint. It just confuses. On the bright side, however, we do get to my favorite scene in Metalstorm, the final chase scene.
Dark Lords are set. Open the way. Open the way.
I know. It makes the flying bike seen in Megaforce seem like a feat of movie magic. Metalstorm, the destruction of Jaredson, ends as bafflingly half-assed as it begins. Not with Jaredson being destroyed, but rather deported by being sucked into a mysterious portal that pops up for reasons. Metalstorm is kind of a puzzling watch for me. I'm not sure if this was supposed to be the first entry in a possible series of Jaredson films that just didn't gel. A poorly executed attempt to cash in on the 80s 3D revival. A Star Wars ripoff with Mad Max-style car battles. Or a Mad Max ripoff with laser guns and space magic. Like many movies, it seemed to try to incorporate as many of those elements from popular fantasy films as it could in order to hit some magic ratio. Which clearly, it didn't. Metalstorm suffers from a unique problem with a lot of B-movies. Although clearly flawed in many ways in its execution, it's not incompetent enough to be funny bad. And of course, not original enough to be considered memorable. My 2 cents here is that if you cut out the film's attempt at mysticism and do it as a straight science fiction action adventure, and lean more into the Mad Max stuff, you might have something a little better. Or at least something easier to follow. Better is a real strong word. If you're a Charles Band completist, or just like all of us, need more Tim Thomerson in your life, Metalstorm is available on DVD and has a tricked out Blu-ray put out by Shout. It's also uploaded in its entirety on a bunch of fine channels here at the old YouTubes. If you like this review, please feel free to subscribe, and until next time, I bid you a fond farewell and a robotic stump filled with green hallucinogenic goop.